Hello there and welcome back to the Business English podcast from Learning English Pro. I'm Ger, your CELTA-trained and business English specialist. This is episode 2 in the podcast series, but it's also the first full-length feature of something I'm calling my interview month. Over the next few weeks, I'll be dropping full podcast lessons, shorts, and downloadable worksheets to help you master English for job interviews. And if it's your first time here, welcome. And if you've been following me for a while, you'll know what this is all about. Helping people, especially non-native English speakers like you, build real, confident, powerful communication in professional settings. Not fake phrases, not textbook English, real talk. Real confidence and real tools to help you land the job, own the room, and grow your career. Now, if you haven't listened to episode 1 yet, it's called How to Introduce Yourself Professionally in English, and it's all about first impressions, how to sound clear, how to structure your intro, and how to highlight your value without sounding robotic. In fact, that episode was all about building your verbal business card, how to say, here's who I am and why it matters. So if you haven't heard it yet, I'll link it in the description. Go back and have a listen when you can. It sets the foundation for today's topic beautifully, because today we're going deeper, people. We're talking about a really difficult question that every single interviewer asks, but most people, especially me, hate answering it. It is a question that seems simple on the surface, but it actually is full of traps. That question is, what's your greatest weakness? And let's be honest here, just hearing that question makes most people panic, even native speakers, even confident professionals. But here's what I want to say to you today. You don't have to be afraid of that question. In fact, you can use it to your advantage. You can turn this trap into a tool. You can use it to demonstrate something that most candidates fail to show: self-awareness, growth, professional maturity, and confidence, even when talking about something uncomfortable. And by the end of this episode, you're going to know why this question is asked in the first place, what not to say, really important. I'm going to show you how to structure a strong, smart, authentic answer, and then how to practice and refine your response using the tools I've created just for you. Now, before we dive in, I just want to mention there's a PDF guide that goes with this episode. It's 5 pages long and it's available right now on the YouTube store. Inside the guide, you'll find a short article with comprehension questions on page 3, a structured writing exercise on page 4, and a full ChatGPT conversation activity on page 5, where you can simulate an interview using this exact question. You can grab the guide for just 49 cents, and honestly, it's designed to help you go from I don't know what to say to I've got this. If you're a student member, you already have access to this PDF and every other guide I've created. Membership is just $4.99 a month and gives you access to all video guides, all interview PDFs, worksheets for most of my shorts, and a growing library of business English materials, past, present, and future. Check the links in the video description or the podcast notes and grab your copy now. Okay, let's get into this topic. Why does this question exist and why does it matter? Let's start with something honest. Most people hate this question. Even professionals with years of experience, even people working in English-speaking companies, still freeze when they hear it. I've seen it happen in real interviews. I've seen students rehearse their introduction for hours, only to completely fall apart when the interviewer says, "Can you tell me about a weakness you've had to work on?" So why is this such a terrifying question? Well, I think there are 2 reasons. Reason 1. We think they want us to confess. There's this fear that if we tell the truth, we'll be disqualified, that they'll hear our answers and think, oh no, they're not perfect. Next candidate, please. But that's not what this question is about. In fact, it's not about your weaknesses at all. It's about how you understand your behavior, reflect on your development, react under pressure, and can describe past challenges in a calm, professional, and emotionally intelligent way. This question tests your composure, not just your character. A second reason why this question makes us all terrified is that we don't know really what is safe to say in this situation. Should you admit to something personal? Should you try to make your weakness sound like a strength? Or should you just lie? That uncertainty makes people overthink, panic, or fall back on the most boring of cliches. But here's the recruiter's perspective, and I've spoken to hiring managers and ESL recruiters about this. This is what they say. They don't expect someone to be perfect, but they do expect them to be real and to show they're capable of growth. This is a golden phrase, capable of growth. When you answer this question, you're not proving that you're flawless, you're showing that you're mature enough to name a challenge, reflect on it, and explain how you're addressing it. In other words, you're not just answering the question, you're showing your mindset. Now, let's talk about the most common mistakes, because a huge part of giving a strong answer is knowing what to avoid. Mistake number 1, saying something like, "I worked too hard." This sounds like a clever trick, but it can become a total cliche because everyone has used it and no one believes it anymore. Recruiters hear this and immediately think, okay, you are dodging the question. Another mistake people say is, "I'm a perfectionist." This is a classic one. And yes, it might be true. I'm a recovering perfectionist myself. I get it. But when you just say the word perfectionist without giving any examples, context, or explanation, it sounds flat, it sounds generic, it sounds forgettable. Remember, in interviews, we're not just speaking, we're trying to be remembered. Another mistake that people say is, "I don't really have any weaknesses." I've heard this too, and let me tell you, it is the worst possible answer because it sounds dishonest, it sounds arrogant, or completely unaware. And if you truly believe you have no weaknesses, that tells the interviewer that you might not be able to take feedback, be collaborative, or have any sense of self-development. And no matter how good your skills are, that's a huge red flag in professional environments, especially in international companies where self-awareness is a huge cultural value. So now that we know what not to say, let's talk about what does work. Because here's the good news. There is a method, there's a structure that's proven, repeatable, and powerful. It helps you sound confident even when you're talking about something uncomfortable. I call it the 3-part answer. Let's break it down. And don't worry, we'll go slowly and I'll walk you through examples and language all the way. Make sure to grab a pen and paper, maybe pause for a second, and get ready to take some notes. And just a reminder, on page 4 of the guide, I've included a writing exercise to help you build your answer from scratch using this exact structure. We'll talk about that again in a moment. So firstly, we need to name a real weakness, but here we need to make it strategic. This is the first hurdle, and for most people, it's the hardest. You want to be honest, but not reckless. You want to be vulnerable, but still professional. You want to sound human without sounding like a liability. Here's the rule I give my students. Choose a weakness that is believable, specific, and not essential to the core responsibilities of the job. So for example, if you're applying for a job that requires constant teamwork, don't say, "I find it hard to collaborate with people." If you're interviewing for a customer service role, don't say, "I struggle with communication." These are the core skills for the job that you're going for, and saying you're weak in them will most likely disqualify you. Instead, here are some examples of safe but honest weaknesses that many professionals experience. 1. Over-preparing or spending too much time on tasks. 2. Difficulty delegating or trusting others with tasks. 3. Being shy about public speaking or large meetings. 4. Impatience with slow processes. 5. Trying to do everything yourself. With all of these examples, there are things you can acknowledge, explain, and most importantly, improve. Now, it's important here to use the right tense. This is really important if you're a language learner. When you talk about the weaknesses, you want to show that it's either in the past or something you're actively working on now. So instead of saying, "I'm bad at delegating," try, "I've sometimes struggled with delegation, especially in fast-moving projects." See the difference here? We're not actually saying you're permanently broken. We're saying this has been a challenge, but it's one that you're now managing. Use phrases like, "I've noticed that," or in the past I've. One area I've worked on is. I used to find it difficult to. Something I've become more aware of is. These phrase starters are professional and they use self-aware language, and they sound excellent in interviews. Once you've named your weakness, you need to show that you've understood how it affects your work. This part is key because it shows that you can recognize your own behavior, understand the consequences, and reflect on your performance. Again, keep it calm and professional. We don't want any drama here. Let's take an example. Say your weakness is over-preparing. You might say, because I want things to be perfect, I sometimes spend too long polishing presentations or writing emails. This has made my workflow less efficient in the past. Or, if your weakness is not speaking up in meetings, we could say, in group settings, I used to hesitate before sharing my ideas. I would worry about my grammar or whether my point made sense. This meant I sometimes stayed quiet, even when I had something useful to contribute. Notice how in both of these examples, the speaker is clear, they are self-aware, they don't make any excuses, and they speak in a calm, thoughtful tone. This is what you're aiming for. Next up, I want you to connect the habit to its impact. We can use lots of useful linking phrases like, as a result, this meant that, because of this, it's sometimes caused, that led to, it affected my ability to. Here's an example. I used to say yes to every task I was given. As a result, I often had to work late or rush my final edits. These linking phrases show recruiters that you're not just giving a random opinion and that you're connecting your behavior to outcome. And that shows maturity and it shows a lot of insight. You also want to show how you're working on your problem. This is the moment to pivot from weakness to growth. You've named the challenge, you've explained the impact. Now, show that you're actively addressing it. This is where you shift the mood from vulnerability to strength. Here are some real examples. I've been using time blocking to limit how much time I spend on each task. I've started setting prep limits for presentations and focusing more on clear messaging than perfect design. I joined a speaking club to practice public speaking in English. I've started asking for feedback more regularly so I can improve and learn faster. Notice the focus here in all the examples. There is action, there is effort, there is progress, and most importantly, there is change. This is the golden moment in your answer. This is what the recruiter will remember. And you can use grammar and vocabulary that shows positive change. Here are some useful phrases. I've been working on. Recently, I started. This year, I've focused more on. I've developed better habits around. I've made changes to how I've become more aware of. All of these use the present perfect or present perfect continuous, which signal that you are in a process, not just a one-time fix. And that's very powerful, especially for international candidates who are trying to show continuous improvement. And don't forget, on page 4 of the guide, there's a full writing exercise where you'll walk through all 3 parts and create your answer step by step. You'll also get starter phrases, vocabulary support, and reflection prompts. And if you're struggling to get started, remember, you don't need the perfect answer, you just need a real one. Now, let's bring everything to life with some real examples from people I've worked with over my 20 years in sales and business. And we'll get some insights from recruiters who specialize in hiring international professionals, because it's one thing to know the formula, but another thing entirely to hear how it works in the real world. Let's look at an example I have from a student in Brazil, Maria. A few months ago, I worked with her. She was applying for a remote customer support role with a UK-based tech company. Her English was solid. She was really, really good. She had a nice, warm tone, and she was great with people. But when we practiced the greatest weakness question in class, she froze. She said, "I think my weakness is grammar. Sometimes I make mistakes in my emails." Now, this is true, but it's also really risky. Why? Because if your job involves communicating with customers and you tell the employer you're not confident with your grammar, you're planting a seed of doubt. So we worked together to reframe her answer. And here's what she ended up saying in her interview. "I used to lack confidence in my written English, especially when replying to difficult or emotional emails. I worried that I wasn't using the right tone or structure. But over the last few months, I've worked with AI tools to check my grammar, and I've been studying examples from my teammates. Now I feel more confident, replying quickly, and my tone has become much more natural." This answer shows self-awareness, emotional intelligence, effort, and progress. And yes, Maria got the job. I also spoke with a recruiter who's hired hundreds of international professionals into English-speaking roles in Ireland. And I asked her directly, "What do you listen for when someone answers this question?" And she told me that she doesn't care what the weakness is. She really cares about how they talk about it. If she finds that someone is defensive or vague or a bit weird about it, she gets worried. But if they're clear, honest, and reflective, even if the weakness is small, she feels like she can trust them. She also said that most people who fail this question don't fail because of the weakness they choose. They fail because they either avoid the question, overshare, or talk themselves out of the job. And here's the takeaway. It's not hiding your flaws. It's about showing your ability to manage them professionally. Here's a challenge for you, and you can do this in your notebook, on your phone, or even in the comments if you feel brave. Think back to a time when you struggled with something at work and you realized it was holding you back, and you actively did something to improve it. It might be asking for help, saying no to extra tasks, being too quiet in meetings, or being overly detail focused and missing deadlines. Whatever it is, that's your real story. You don't need to create a fake answer to impress people. You just need to show that you've grown. And if you want to practice, don't forget the page 4 exercise. I've built it exactly for this task. You'll start with your weakness, map the impact, and then describe your growth. Honestly, it's one of the most useful things I've created, and if you do it properly, you'll walk away with a solid, confident answer ready to go. And here's your public challenge if you feel ready. Write your weakness answer in the comments below. Use the 3-part structure. What was your challenge? What was the impact? And what have you done to improve? I'll personally reply to you with an audio note. I'll get to as many as I can. And who knows, you might inspire someone else who's been struggling to find their own words. Before we move into our final section, let's recap the tenses and grammar we've used. To talk about past challenges, we can use I used to struggle with. In the past, I found it difficult to. To describe past habits, we could say I would often. To show awareness and reflection, you could say I've noticed that. I realized it was affecting. It made me aware that. If you want to show improvement and change, you could say, I've started using. I've been working on. I've become more confident about. Or, I've developed a better habit of. These phrases are pure business English gold, and they show structure, logic, and reflection. If you use them confidently, your answers will stand out, even to native English speakers. So, you've learned the structure, you've seen the real examples, you've had time to reflect. Now it's time to put it all into practice. And for that, we're going to use something that's helped so many of my students recently, especially those preparing for interviews alone or without a teacher. We're going to use ChatGPT or Gemini to practice this question in a mock interview format. On page 5 of the guide, you'll find a ChatGPT conversation prompt. Here's how it works. Open ChatGPT or Gemini on your phone or computer. Copy the prompt exactly as I've written it in the guide. Paste that into the AI and hit enter. You'll instantly have an AI-powered interviewer asking you real questions. You can type your responses or use the conversation feature to really boost your speaking skills. After each answer, the AI can give you direct feedback. It's fantastic. Now, I know some people feel weird about using AI, but here's the thing, it's a practical tool, not a replacement for human interaction. But what makes it powerful is you get to practice under pressure, you get immediate feedback, and you don't have to wait for a teacher or a language partner. It's private, it's fast, and it's repeatable. And the best thing is, it will never get tired of helping you practice. If you want to challenge yourself, you can ask the AI to act like a recruiter from a specific company like Google or Facebook or TikTok. You can focus only on tough questions and ask follow-up questions to test your fluency. You could even say something like, "Ask me the greatest weakness interview question and then push me to explain it better." Try that. Seriously, try it today. And let me know how it goes in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Before we wrap up this second episode of the Business English podcast, I just want to say this. We put so much pressure on ourselves to sound perfect in interviews, to look confident, to say the right thing, to avoid mistakes. And yes, your English language matters. Yes, your structure matters. Yes, this podcast is here to help you refine your English. But don't forget this. You're allowed to grow, you're allowed to have weaknesses, and the best candidates don't hide their flaws. They understand them and they own their own development. So if you're listening to this today and thinking, I'm not ready yet, or my English isn't perfect, or what if they don't pick me? Let me remind you, progress is more powerful than perfection. If you keep showing up, you keep practicing and refining your answers, you will get better and you will be ready. I believe that, and I hope you do too. So here's what you can do right now. Grab the full guide for this episode. It's available on the YouTube store for just 49¢, or you can get it as part of the student membership, which is €4.99 per month. Inside, you'll find 3 exercises, a reading and comprehension quiz, a write your own answer activity, and the ChatGPT interview practice. And make sure to comment, what's your weakness that you've overcome? Or you can post your 3-part answer and I'll give you feedback with an audio message. Don't forget to check out my Shorts tab, which will have lots of business English content coming to you this month relating to the interview process. And lots of these shorts will have additional worksheets attached to them, which you can purchase for just 49¢ on the YouTube store or get them as part of the student membership. And don't forget, this is just the beginning of my interview month. Here's what's coming next on the podcast. Episode 3 is all about the question, why do you want to work here? This is the interview question that needs the smartest answer. I'll be detailing how to research a company, connect your story to their mission, and give a response that sounds personal and professional. Other business English interview lessons this month coming up include 20 top interview questions and how to answer them, business English grammar shorts, and lots more PDF supported content for my student members. If you've enjoyed this episode, please give it a like, leave a comment, and share it with someone preparing for interviews, and consider supporting the channel through the store or membership. Thanks for being here, and thank you for doing the work. Until next time, this is Jer from Learning English Pro saying take care, be kind to yourself, and keep learning business English.